Well, it's Thursday, and that means it's time to get a take on the news from the left, right, and middle. From the left is political strategist Andre Richardson, and from the right is Horace Cooper. He is a legal commentator and fellow with the National Center for Policy. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Excellent.
Great.
Andre, welcome to the left, right, middle table. You've been on Arise News many times, but this is your first go round with Horace. So.
Yes, thank you.
All right, here we go. Of course, everybody is talking about this announcement from President Barack Obama and Raul Castro of normalizing relations with Cuba. So since you're new at the table, Andre, I'll let you go first. Is this a good thing to do, and is this the right thing to do?
Well, I think you can see in the numbers that are out there that there's an overwhelming majority of Cuban Americans that would like to see this happen. The one thing we also need to keep in mind is that while we're increasing relations, this is an excellent first step, although it is a small step, but we'll see a lot of things continue to come down the line as this begins to unfold.
Okay. All right, Horace.
Okay, well, I don't know where he's looking because I saw demonstrations and protests taking place and a bipartisan response, Democrats and Republicans of Cuban nationality coming out against this. Here's the truth. The Pope Francis and the president themselves should have heeded the notion that we ought to be in the business not of comforting those that torment, but as Pope Francis said, I am here to torment those that deny the comfort to those that are needed. The president's policy will, in fact, reward the dictators and the brutal treatment, and there will be no change other than welcoming them to the League of Civilized Nations.
This is a 50-year policy that's been in place that clearly hasn't been working, and we've gotten nowhere from it. So why not start something as simple as a dialogue?
You don't take people off of death row because they haven't been rehabilitated and bring them back home and let them go about their day. You don't
But you also need to bring families together from Cuban exiles who came here over 60 years ago, who need to see their families, who can't communicate with them over the phone, over the internet. They have about a 5% penetration rate. And I think Republicans are going to find themselves once again on the wrong side of history on this. Because if you look at 2012 and you look at 28, you see that Obama won in 2012 by 5 points. And in 08, I think it was by 3 points. So Mark Rubio will probably be in trouble the next time he's on the ballot.
It was Robert Menendez, a Democrat in the United States Senate, who said that this was a terrible mistake, and he said it set a terrible precedent.
With all due respect, and I used to work for Senator Menendez, he's saying this because he wasn't a part of the conversation.
And that's why this shouldn't have happened.
The politics the politics may have been a little sloppy on it, but this is far from a terrible thing. We're going to start to see people more and more, come on board with this idea.
Sloppy? Here's what's going to happen. When Congress returns, there's going to be a bipartisan effort to reject this decision and embarrass the President of the United States standing on the world stage. If you're going to do this thing, at least what you could have done is prepared people who could support you in Congress. Bring Rand Paul in, bring Senator Flake in, and Senator Menendez in, and get them on board. This was going ugly early. It wasn't necessary, and he's going to get rebuked.
Horace, I would just say for the most part, the people that knew were the only people that needed to know at the time, with the exception of Senator Menendez, who should have been brought into the fold
Absolutely not.
to help this process move along.
Absolutely not. This is not how Nixon went to China. This is not how the President of the United States, George Herbert Walker Bush, started the first Iraq War. This isn't how any kind of major international change occurs. You absolutely have to do the predicate work. The President's advisors let him down and didn't do this. And in fact, I promise you, this is going to get reversed. The very thing you say ultimately is going to happen isn't going to happen.
I don't know that Congress can reverse an executive action. They say it's certainly within their power to decide not to ease or end the embargo, the trade embargoes with Cuba.
Not only will the embargo not be eased, but the official recognition is going to be denied. The same way that the conversation about Iran, the same way the conversation about Israel requires buy-in by the Congress of the United States to go this direction in such a way.
The only issue I can see right now is that we won't receive any funding for an embassy over in Cuba. The embargo eventually will be lifted.
Not under this president, it won't. This is exactly the wrong way to have done this.
So it sounds like to me that this argument now has all become about the politics of this decision and not really about the ramifications of this decision. So I want to turn the corner and talk about our next topic in the last couple of minutes that we have in the show. And that, of course, is the conversation we've been having all week long about the Sony servers being hacked and all of these sensitive information released, particularly these emails. And, of course, Sony, as a result, canceled the release of the interview. Is this a good idea or a bad idea on Sony's part to capitulate? Horace, I'll let you get us going.
Well, I would have delayed the release. I would have said that we're not going to do it on Christmas Day because so many other movies were coming out, and it's one of the biggest movie-going days in the country. And a lot of the companies, the movie theater companies, were worried that people wouldn't go to the theater out of fear. And a lot of the shopping malls where these are located were worried that they wouldn't get any of the restaurant business, etc. So I probably would have just simply delayed it, or else said January 1st, we're going to release it directly via video. I wouldn't have capitulated this way, and I think it encourages a whole host of, again, brutal dictators to threaten us and to get us to change what we do. Free speech is fundamental, and we should have stood by that.
Andre.
So it pains me slightly, but I have to kind of agree with Horace in this regard. And I guess what we're seeing here is that no American industry right now is impervious to cyber attacks. One of the most troubling parts, outside of the terrorist threat, is the tone of some of the emails between some of the Sony executives as it pertains to speaking about a black president and other, well-known black actors. That's outside of the terrorist attack. That's what I found to be the most troubling.
And you bring up a very interesting point, Andre, because it's very interesting to me that now this whole conversation has shifted from the lack of diversity, the insensitivity of these executives, which is what we were talking about earlier in the week, to whether or not this was a blow to free speech because the movie was pulled. And I wonder if they just artfully changed the subject.
Oh, this is a $40 million hit to artfully change the subject. Now, frankly, if the president who was mentioned in these emails was offended by it, it would have been nice to hear him say, you owe me an apology, and let Amy Pascal
I don't necessarily think the president needs to go down to that level. I don't necessarily think he needs to comment on what a Sony exec said about like 12 years a slave.
All right, I'll give you 5. Go, Horace. You got 5. Go.
He needed to do it that way so that we could get that issue resolved and we could turn back to the cyber.
And that's 5. Andre, you got 5.
All I'll say is it's pretty despicable to say the president of the United States will watch 12 Years a Slave. And I'll just end it on that note.
All right, Andre Richardson and Horace Cooper. That was fun. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you tomorrow on Arise America. Bye-bye.